Good morning and welcome to Beneath the Plates. I am your host, Jared Allred, aka the Iron Chaplain. Okay, let's jump in today. I said yesterday I was probably going to talk about bipolar and personality tests, specifically the Enneagram, and that is 100% accurate. That's what we're going to talk about. So, I'm been starting. I've got like a tradition now where I start these off with a story. So let's go. About 2 years ago, what's the best way? Mental breakdown is not accurate because that's too severe. Personality crisis might be more descriptive. Okay, let me set the stage. So I was a newer pastor. We hadn't taken over Round Mountain yet. So we'd moved out from New York and we're pastoring Calvary Assembly in Ely, Nevada. Had not yet picked up. It was 6 months in before we picked up Round Mountain. So it was right around the time. So yeah, when this all went down, no, we would have been doing Round Mountain because we did a premiere in Round Mountain. So when we started shooting the movie, we had not gotten Round Mountain yet. Yeah, but we got Round Mountain in August. And this story is going to take place in October. So we had just started. So that might have even been a contributing factor, is essentially doubling my workload. So when we move out for about 7 months at this point, I'd been pastoring Ely. I just picked up Round Mountain. So then on Sundays, I was doing a Saturday night service and then a Sunday morning service, 2 Sunday morning services. And then when service was over, we'd jump in the car and drive down to Round Mountain and do a Sunday night service in Round Mountain. We had several, over the summer, we had been shooting a movie. We were shooting, it was called Worth Dying For. It was like a horror-esque film, and we were doing a premiere on Halloween. It was like an outreach event. So, movie shot, needed some pickup scenes, but we didn't have time. And I'm editing it. At the time, I'm the youth pastor, not yet in Round Mountain, but I am a youth pastor in Ely. So I've taken over, I'm running the youth ministry in Ely. I'm preaching. So I've got Saturday night, 2 Sunday mornings, a Sunday night, and then a Wednesday night. So I'm preaching 5 times a week. That would have been 3 different messages over those 5 different sermons, or 3 different sermons in those 5 different preaching times. The traveling back and forth, and that was all new, getting used to the community there around Mountain. So I had a lot going on. And I just started feeling off, like something wasn't right. Now, to put in perspective, we were pretty big fans of Enneagram, personality test. I've always struggled with it a little bit because, I like to say that I don't think it's actually a personality test. I think it's more of how your brain processes information rather than your actual personality, because you can have 2 people in the same Enneagram number who think alike and process the world and information very similarly, but have very different personalities. So I've never thought it was a true personality test personally, but we'd use it, right? And so I was in Enneagram 5. And yes, you did pick up on the fact that I said was. Kind of am. Anyways, we'll get to that. So I'm struggling, okay? And I start to feel like I don't feel like a 5. Like a 5 is very logical. I start being very emotional to the point where I'm having some breakdowns and I'm barely holding it together. I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. And again, I just came out of 3.5 years in New York of the calm, rational problem solver where, for the most part, there were a few chinks in this armor, but things didn't really get to me. And I was able to solve all the problems all throughout the pandemic. When, every couple of days things were changing, I was like the rock in terms of not having emotional reactions. Cool, this is just a new set of data inputs of what's going on, and we'll adapt to it. And this is what we'll do. And so that was kind of my role, is I was constantly adjusting and advising the senior pastor on potential strategies. At one point, he actually asked me if I could see the future because I would say something, and he would tell me, "You're crazy." And then, 3 weeks to 3 months later, that's exactly what was happening. And so at one point he was like, are you able to see the future? What's going on? How do you keep? No, I can see the patterns. pattern recognition. I see where things are going. And that was kind of my role. So we get out here, and now I'm the lead pastor, not the supporting role. And we go from having a upper class, kind of upper class, like not rich, but kind of close, large church, 200 plus people. I mean, we had 200 showing up over the weekend, but we had like 600 people who consider our church home, and that we were, rotating out to make 200 at a time. And had been the youth pastor. At the time, though, I was discipleship pastor, so I spent a lot of time with these people. Most of them came from a Catholic background and had a very specific, I don't know, like mentality. They were also, anyways. So then we get over here, and now I go from middle upper to upper, ex-Catholics to, and mostly Italian, to, and now this doesn't really describe our church anymore because we've gone through quite a metamorphosis. But when we first got here, it was very much a lower class and even like poverty. And I don't mean classes and like, not to put them down, just I'm talking about like, economically and whatever, right? Lower class and even a lot, in the poverty kind of category. That very different way of thinking about things, going from this kind of Italian Catholic immigrant kind of background, like much more successful, to poverty, depression, a lot of abuse and mental health issues in the community. And it was this huge change of the day-to-day stuff, right? And so I get to the point where, first off, all my logical solutions and everything that worked so well in the last environment were not working so well here. We get to the point where like I just start to feel off, and I just feel like something's not right. I was getting very emotional, and things were just like the way I was reacting and responding to situations and feeling about situations was way out of step from the last 4 years at this point, because 6 months here plus 4 years there. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And so I start having like a personality crisis. Like, who am I? Like, I'm not, like, I feel like I'm a different person than who I've been for the last, 4.5 plus years as this transition started happening. So I kind of start freaking out. And so one night we're in a youth service, and I wasn't actually doing that service because it got to the point where we're getting really close to the deadline and I needed more editing time. So a volunteer ended up volunteering to kind of take over and do some youth services. And so I was in the back because I'd been editing, and I was still in the services. I was just needed to not have all the prep time, just I could just show up and be at the service. So I was like sitting in the back, and I couldn't tell you anything that happened in that service because the entire time I'm just sitting there unwinding, like emotionally, with like, I don't know who I am. And like my identity does not seem to match who I am. Again, this is long before I figure out all the bipolar stuff, which kind of just answers everything. And so I'm like kind of freaking out. So we go home that night and I can't sleep. So I pull out my phone and I retake the Enneagram test because I'm like, I don't feel like a 5. I feel like a different person. What is going on? So I take the test, and it comes back that I'm a 4 winged 3, right? And I'm like, what the heck? I've been a 5. And I go, and it can't be that it's changed, because before I was a 5, we got to back up a little bit, I was an 8. So I'm like, I've already changed it once, right? And you're not supposed to ever change it at all. So my Enneagram's changed once. So there's no way I can get away with trying to because it could be a fluke. Like, well, maybe, because of the situation I was in, it caused me to answer not super accurately. And because I was in where we were in like Virginia, and I was trying to get we didn't have money. I was trying to get things going. I was trying to start up a business, all these things. It caused me to put on this exterior, which caused the false test result of an 8. But that was wearing me out, and that's not who I actually am. I'm actually a 5. And that's kind of how I justified it. I'm like, I can't do that again. Like, what's going on? Like, this is weird. Like, I don't feel like I have multiple personalities. I'm like, what is going on? Why did I? And I'm like reading through the results. I'm like, no, but I feel like this is accurate. And this really describes how I've been. So I ended up having like a bit of a breakdown, and I ended up having to take a couple days off. I don't remember why. I had to go to Vegas for something. So someone volunteered to like just drive me, which is very unusual for me because I'm always wanting to be the one to drive. And they volunteered to just drive so I could, and we just kind of talked and walked through this whole thing. Quick break. I didn't take a drink. Okay. And so like I can't figure it out. But from talking to my wife, talking to a couple of closer friends at the time, I mean, it seemed accurate. So I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Well, come to find out, about a year and a half later, year and a half later, is when we realized about the bipolar 2. So that then made everything kind of make sense, because basically how it breaks down is the reason I was an 8 is when I'm manic, my personality shifts. I'm like an Enneagram 8, right? The a little bit cold, but like a little bossy, but the take charge, entrepreneur, let's get stuff done, let's come up with a plan, and let's take action and work, and just get it all done, and right, that kind of type A personality. But then when I'm depressive, I drop down to being a 5, which is the rational, not emotional, problem solver. The biggest thing that would annoy me was when people were inefficient. And, that was my biggest issue, is you're being inefficient. This could be done so much better this way. But then when I'm base, I'm a 4-wing 3, which is the performer, which can, basically use the traits of a 4 and a 3 to step into whatever role, which works really well for being a pastor, is being the performer. And so I, in Virginia, had been manic pretty much, well, there was some depressive in there, but it was mostly like actual just depression, because I was trying to survive, right? We're in a terrible situation. Well, I won't go into it, but definitely there was some spiritual abuse and #church hurt, mismanagement of things there. And so we were just trying to survive, which caused me to pretty much like, I was having to, I was working 2 jobs at the church. I was driving Uber and Lyft weeknights and weekends. And I was running like a photography business to make extra money by, doing photography for people's weddings and engagement photos and stuff. So I was pretty much keeping myself redlined in manic for the most of the time. And then there was just extreme bouts of depression, which then the mania would help me kind of survive through, like not just being depressed, and because I had to keep going. I had very little downtime. And we get to New York, and I wasn't depressed, but the role, it went into that depressive where I had plenty of time to study and think and work on the systems. And I definitely would have times of mania and stuff in there. I'm not saying I was depressive the whole time, but overall, that was how it expressed most often. And then, we got here, and I shifted into a longer period of being base. And like I said, I was like, I don't feel like I used to feel. What's going on? And that's why I retested. So kind of interesting how basically each state that I'm in from bipolar, can I take another drink, will shift my Enneagram number. And they would also do this with like the Myers-Briggs. I just don't remember all the numbers, but I remember it would shift. I remember the biggest shift is sometimes, because I took that test a lot, and sometimes I would be an I, which is like intuitive, and sometimes it'd be a J, if I remember this right. The J was, anyways, sometimes basically, or no, it wasn't the E or I. So sometimes it showed me as an I, which, well, anyways, whatever the numbers are. If you remember, it's been so long, I haven't, I don't remember. But basically, that first letter, sometimes it showed me as introverted and sometimes as extroverted. Now, I am naturally an introvert. I talk about my social anxiety with trying to record at the gym and how hard that is, but I can definitely I can put on the role of an extrovert, if I'm manic or even as base, I can jump in as the performer. So like Sunday mornings, I can get up and preach and, not have an issue. I used to struggle with that a lot more as a youth pastor of times when I had to preach and I was feeling much more introverted. It was a struggle. So anyways, depending on my actual state of bipolar 2, it will actually shift my Enneagram, which again, I'm not a big proponent of. It's not really a personality. It's not like my personality is necessarily shifting. It's how I process and respond to external stimulation. And I've actually recently, under more study, found out even more accurately. Because if you study the Enneagram, it's like 2,000 years old, and it was from like Jewish mystics. And it was based around the 9 numbers are not 9 personalities, it's the 9 passions, which passion, that word doesn't work anymore because the meaning's changed. But what it meant was the 9 sins and the 9 sin types. So what it essentially means is your Enneagram number is not your personality. My saying it's how you process information is a little closer to the truth, but what actually is the 9 different sin patterns you will get into when you are not relying on God, when you are kind of trying to do things on your own. And so like an 8, they get very controlling, right? When they're not relying on God, they will start to try to control things, be bossy. A 9 will be very much of a pacifist. Let's just avoid conflict. Even if it ends up hurting everyone in the long run, let's avoid conflict altogether. Versus all I can think of is 2. I'm trying to say a 5. A 5 will revert to logic and cold, calculating logic. So that's actually much more accurate, is the 9 passions or the 9 sin types. But it's interesting, just I think, at least worth doing a short episode on, is to see the shift in those different personality types. So if you are bipolar or married to someone bipolar, sometimes it can feel like different personalities as those shifts. Like my wife will struggle with that because she has to kind of navigate like, okay, if he is manic, he's going to act and respond to things like around him differently than if he's depressive or if he's base. She prefers me at base. The way she kind of looks at it is at base. Obviously, she's my wife. She sees me differently than even reality. But she's like, at base, she basically says, I'm perfect. And I'm the greatest person to be around. I don't know how much she feels about like depressive, but I know she does not like me at manic. And unfortunately, I spend more time at manic than not. So that's like a big challenge of mine. I've been really working on either not shifting into full-blown mania, or when I do, I kind of in my own brain, because I'm not just bipolar 2, I also have, I can't think what it's called, the mixed states, I guess. So I kind of break it up into like each of those 3 into like another 3. So like if I'm manic, I kind of break it as like low, mid, and high. And if I can if I go manic, if I can stay in that low level, it's not bad. In fact, if I can mix like a low level mania with like a low level depressive, it's pretty close to base. It's not the same. There's definitely a difference, and she can tell the difference. But in terms of functioning around people who don't know me as well, it's going to be pretty similar. And so I try to like not get at all ever to like that top level of mania, because I mean, just being super honest, well, no one enjoys being around me, and I don't even enjoy myself. And that's, I get to be a bit of, pardon the expression, but a bit of an a-hole and a bit of a jerk, but even a higher level, which is why I say a-hole. And I'm not super nice. I can be very cutting. I can be very, not like physically cutting, I mean like cutting remarks, very short. This is like the height of like when I was a type A. And it can get so bad in that high level that I will actually spin myself out where I can't even get work done. So in those lower levels, sure, the mania can really help with just increased energy, getting a ton of work done, being very productive. But when I get to that highest level, I just get anxious and I can't even do anything. So I just get like anxious and I get frustrated, and so it's like, okay, well, let me go for a walk, or let me try to take a nap and reset. A lot of times that's when my appetite gets way out of control. And I will undo a week or 2 weeks worth of progress in those periods, which is actually why I am on a GLP-1, which right now I'm not. I'm actually cycling off for 2 weeks to kind of help reset sensitivity. Also, there's a supply issue with who I get it from as they're changing over pharmacies. So I'm like, well, let's combine these together. Let me go ahead and just come off of it for like 2 weeks and try to do like a reset while it's also harder to get it from them right now. And I'm hoping that kind of fixes itself, but definitely do like a 2 week reset. But anyways, that's why I decided to go ahead and do, because I lose a bunch of weight, get healthy, doing really well. And then I go into that like higher level of mania, and like my appetite just skyrockets. And I have two options. I can either give in and eat and eat and eat and eat and literally undo a week or a week and a half's worth of progress in like 1 or 2 days. I can gain 15 pounds on a weekend if I just give into that. Or I can fight it. Oh, just use some willpower. Yeah, great. That's all I do. It literally, I can't do anything else. All I do is fight that high level mania and the appetite that comes with it and the impulses to just eat. That's all I do. And for, 1, 2, 3 days a week, I'm not productive at all. I can't do anything else other than, and it's miserable because it's not like I'm just not doing anything else. It's like actively fighting and being like ravenously hungry. So the GLP-1 helps with that because, and I can even notice it, like I will be like low appetite, and then all of a sudden I'll have a couple days where I'm a bit hungrier. And I know that's, oh, okay. So this would have been me going out and just struggling. This is now just a little bit of so I'm like, okay, I'm still under my calorie restrict that I'm trying to hit, my cut I'm trying to do. So I can just eat a bit more in these days, but it helps with that. So like they talk about food noise. I don't typically struggle with food noise except for when I'm those higher levels of mania. And it kind of, varies. So like if I hit depressive being on GLP-1, it's hard to eat anything. I have to be careful because I'll just go all day and not eat. If I'm base, it's just pretty good. If I'm manic, I'm still going to eat more. It's just going to help me not overeat too much. So I found it to be really helpful with that. Anyways, I didn't even mean to go into that. That could have even been a whole episode. But with that, that is a little bit of a summary on both the personalities and a little bit of appetite kind of suppression and stuff with bipolar. So hope it helped. Like I said, I want about a fourth of this content, maybe a third of this content, probably a third, to really be around like the mental health, mental illness, how that affects the gym. And that's why it's beneath the plates. So with that, love you guys. Have a blessed day. I'll see you in the next episode.